Hey everybody, and welcome to a new feature on Super Comic Fun Time, our daily comic book vlog. And I put daily in quotes. I'm hoping that, well, daily is going to be more of a goal and that I will do it often. And the plan for this show is just to tell you what I'm reading, what I think about it. There's any notable comic book news, maybe cover it. I don't really plan on covering comic book news because I think, well, I don't have any inside track. And I think there are other people who are already covering that, and they can probably do it in a more entertaining way than I can, at least at this point. So this will be just like I read a lot, and then I don't tell you guys about it. I don't really tell anybody about it. So this will be at least an outlet for that. And I'm hoping that, doing it more regularly, like every day, like a little bit, like this is after work for me, spending 5 or 10 minutes going over what I read today, or what I read in this case, like a couple of weeks ago. And, just kind of fleshing things out, how the comic books affect me and stuff. I do want to show, like, this is my latest pack. I'm excited for this one for when I open it. So on one side we have Robin 2, and you have a little bit of one of those cool holographic cards that the Joker's holding. The cover's cool, and really I've still got so many of these that I didn't need it, but then when I turned it around and there was this cool book from the 60s, Captain Savage and the Leatherneck Raiders. I don't think I ever heard of this book when I was a kid. I think I looked it up after I got this pack, and it was something that Marvel Comics wanted to put more comics on the shelf, and this was supposed to be sort of like a companion piece to Sergeant Fury and his Howling Commandos. And I don't know if it ever caught on. I don't know if Captain Savage is a character now with S.H.I.E.L.D., but it just looked, I mean, it's cool. Whenever you can find you get all this stuff, you get two things that look interesting to you, and the price is pretty good, and you got that thick, and you don't know what's inside. And there are some like thicker books in here. Like I think there's like Lone Wolf and Cub, and I wonder if I didn't find one of these before in another pack, because I think Frank Miller's name might be associated with it. Frank Miller and Dave Gibbons, Give Me Liberty. There's 2 volumes of that in there. So those are the only things other than the front and back cover that I know are in there. And yeah, this one, I don't know. I love finding these old books. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So a couple of weeks ago, I started taking some of those Shazams I opened up over my birthday week, and I started reading them. I took two at a time, and I started with this one. Let's see. So this one is Shazam. But is it number 34, I think, because I kind of remember that because it cost 35 cents. So this one is kind of wild because like the cover is just very violent, and this is from 1976. And really, I don't know anything about this book. I didn't read it. I was into the TV show, the live action TV show when I was a kid. And then, it just is so over the top. It's like, it's over, Captain Nazi, you deserve to die. And Captain Marvel, I mean, just look at his pose there. And he's like, no, Junior, even though he's a murderer, if you kill him, I'll have to hunt you down. So I just decided to start with this one because it looked like it'd be the most interesting. And the title of the story is called The Fuhrer of Chicago. And the artwork is an interesting mix in this one. Of all of the Shazams I got in that pack, this one it's like, let me find it here. It's like the facial expressions sometimes. Like here, you have Billy Batson talking to, who is this guy? Was it his boss? Don't worry, I'll show you again. It's like amalgamated broadcasting. Now, what they're doing in here is like in some of the earlier issues, if you remember the old TV show or seen it on YouTube, or it might have even been on Netflix, is Billy Batson. He's an older guy than in the comic books, but he travels the highways and byways of America with his friend Mentor. And Mentor, of course, is a literary character from Homer's Odyssey, and he trains Telemachus, who is Odysseus's son. But in that show, he just kind of like helped Billy Batson, and then when he couldn't solve a problem, he would talk to some of the gods, like Shazam. That's what it stands for. In case you didn't know, in case you're just stumbling upon this. So, Shazam, S is Solomon for wisdom. H is Hercules for strength. A is Atlas for stamina. Z is Zeus for power. That's where the lightning bolt comes from. A is Achilles for courage, and M is Mercury for speed. So, in these books, instead of like, I forget how he did it in the TV show. He seemed to go into a trance, and then there were these cartoon figures of these Olympian gods or whatever. They're not all Olympians, but I lost my train of thought. So, anyways, like you see, this is like he's traveling across, instead of like mentor. In like one of the earlier books, it's like their uncle. What's his name? It's right here. So yeah, they come. Yeah, this is like the weird thing is like the comic book starts and there's like landmines. They're coming into Chicago, and their van hits landmines, and so Billy puts on. He becomes Captain Marvel, and yeah, I read all these books. I was immersed in them, and I can't remember. It's like Uncle Wiggly, Uncle Squiggly. I can't remember, but anyways, he's kind of playing the role of mentor here. And in this, maybe it was in the TV show too. They have a kind of weird round phone. But the thing I was going to show you is so like Billy Batson goes to Chicago to, and then what they're doing is they're going around the country and doing these broadcasts, but they're really trying to capture. Is it Savannah, who's like setting all these traps. And a lot of these books take place in the year 1976. So a lot of the places they go have to do with the revolution. But this is pretty late in the storyline, and they're in Chicago, which doesn't have anything to do with the American Revolution. Because for those of you who remember, 1976 was the 200th anniversary of the United States as a country. And there were big celebrations back then. So anyways, I forget exactly what they're doing, but the thing I want to get to is just like a lot of these books are written for kids, and like you'll have like them just seeming to have a regular conversation, and then just look at the expression on this guy. It just jumps out at you. And none of the other books that I read, and I had the one that came after it. I had number 35, which was probably the best one in the series. So in this book, it's like, the other thing going on at this time is the Nazis had marched in Skokie, Illinois, and there was a big to-do about that. The ACLU went to court to defend their right of free speech. And so that's why this is taking place in Chicago too, because I guess in the 70s, there was a lot of Nazi activity around the Chicago area. Having a kombucha. I've heard varying things about whether kombucha is good for you or not. This is a GT's, and it is ginger and turmeric, and it's currently my favorite. And you come home from work and you just need something. So yeah, I mean, it's weird. And then like there's this in-house ad in here. See if I can get that. And it says a dynamic new look. Now, oh, you know what? Maybe I don't have issue 35. Maybe I just go from 30. Yeah, so I do. I do have 35. And so you have this being a dynamic new look. And let's see, I'll tell you the artists for it. The art is by Ellen Weiss, and Joe Rubenstein. The story is by E. Nelson Birdwell. And the story's not bad, but it is a little bit these books seem to have been made for kids. And they're enjoyable, but they can also grate on you. At the same time, I was reading this on my tablet. I was reading Jodorowsky's The Inkle books, and that is just so good that taking time to read these was a little painful at times, but some of these were really good. I thought the follow-up to this one Um, this one was a very good one. What happens in this one is it's a time travel story. Is in this issue, Captain Nazi puts like some kind of dome around Chicago, so when Billy says Shazam, the lightning can't get through. And so what he ends up doing is he calls this guy, who's Captain Marvel Jr., who is like this kid who is crippled and he sells newspapers. But when he almost died, like helping Captain Marvel at some point, and so Captain Marvel takes him to the Wizard, and the Wizard says, "Well, you can share some of your power with him." So whenever this guy says Captain Marvel, he turns into Captain Marvel Jr. And yeah, so that's the other thing you get. You get like the Marvel family is through here. As you can see, like this is Billy Batson's twin sister, who didn't know that, you know, when he got the power, he didn't know he had a twin. But as soon as the Wizard gave Billy the power, she had it too. And so yeah, this one starts off with a bridge disappearing. And so yeah, this one was really good. And what happened is in this book, in the Captain Nazi book, when Billy said Shazam, the lightning didn't have anywhere to go. So it released this character who's kind of like Prometheus, only like really evil. From the mountain, the eternal mountain, or whatever they call it, you know, where Shazam lives and whatnot. Captain Nazi had surrounded Chicago with a force field. So like, yeah, you have Shazam giving the backstory in case you missed the previous issue. And like, what were these people called? The Beastmen. So the king of the Beastmen gets loose, and he gets a time machine, and he starts regressing. A lot of ways, if you're a fan of Philip K. Dick, it's like Ubik. It's like, and so what happens is like it ends up going back to like 38 or 39, and they go and find Mary, and even though she doesn't know she has Shazam powers, when they find her, as soon as she says Shazam, she turns into Mary Marvel, and they and she has her memory back. So then they end up going to hell. They actually go to hell in this book because that's where the Beast Man has his time machine and is like causing. See, his plan is to like cause everything to regress and then stop men from ever. Whatever they did to defeat the Beastmen in the first place, and then take over the earth. And I thought this one was like really, really the best story. It's still like a lot of kids stuff, but I thought it was the best story of the Shazam books I've read. And they were, you know, for what they were pretty good. I also, from that same pack, there's this Justice League. Now this one was really good. This was a New Gods story. This, you know, before Crisis on Infinite Earths, every year from around 1963 onward, they would do these different crisis stories. So, you know, the Justice League and the Justice Society would kind of get together and do a crossover. And the very first one was called Crisis on Earth 1, and then there was Crisis on Earth 2, which was a two-part story. And then every year since then, they did a sort of crisis story. In this case, and this book is very, very worn, but is a very good book. I need to find part 2 of this so I know how the story ends. The JSA and the JLA are getting together for their annual thing, and I forget exactly where they're going to go, but they get transported to Apocalypse, and then they have an adventure there. Oh no, they get transported to New Genesis, and then none of the New Gods are around, and then they run into Orion, and it was a very good story, very good story. And this, so I think like DC had like kind of 2 levels going on. Definitely this was for kids. I would say like around 8 years old, you know, maybe not this particular issue. This one was a little more mature, but most of them are like, holy moly. And most of them are very cartoon. Like here, you can see from this cover, this is the earliest one I have. And so you have this dragon person who looks very much, you know, he looks like Wally Gator from Hanna-Barbera. And then these guys look very cartoony. And there is one story where there's like just all these Marvels. I don't know who they are. And they had like fatty Billy Batson and they had cowboy Billy Batson. And like they had to go fight these people. And so like, you know, Captain Marvel went all around to call all these people. And then they sing a song. They sing a freaking song. And it was so cool. And, you know, you could almost, you know, the song rhymed well enough that, that you could, hear the music in your head as you sing it. It reminded me of like Mighty Mouse, here they come to save the day, and that kind of tune. And then before Bosch Fostwin's book came yesterday, I'd started going through my Mr. Miracle collection. And these are the two oldest ones here. And these are not consecutive. There's like a skip in these, but these are very good. So, one starts off with, they both start off on Apocalypse, but in the one I don't have is Mr. Miracle is in some other dimension after he tries to, in the first book, he tries to kill Darkseid, but Darkseid is, you're not going to be able to do that. And he like beams him into a different dimension. And then something happens in that dimension. Then they come back, they go to New Genesis, and then they come to Earth where Mr. Miracle performs his most death-defying act ever. And I really enjoyed these books. I think if I would have read Mr. Miracle as a kid, I would have liked it. I would have been a DC fan sooner based on these two books. And I did start reading Bosch Fostwin's book today, A Table for One, and it's very good. I only read it this morning on the bus because when it got a little sloppy here in the afternoon, and I didn't want, these books are kind of beat up and stuff, and so it's okay if they get a little wet because, probably they're in good condition for being like 40 years old or 30 years old, but they're not in pristine condition. Nobody's going to pay more than a few cents for them, I think. And Bosch Fostwin's book is just so beautiful. I didn't want to any of the snow that was stuck in my coat. I didn't want that just to warp the book. So I'm going to continue reading that tomorrow, and that will be tomorrow's vlog. And I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here. It was fun talking to you guys. Let me know what you think. And comment down below when this is up on YouTube, which should be momentarily. And I will talk to you again tomorrow. Hope to do this daily. Bye.